You know, history has a way of repeating itself. And in the story of Israel, it repeated more times than they would have liked. After the days of Shamgar, the people once again drifted away from God. It didn't happen all at once. It never does. Little compromises, small decisions. And before long, they found themselves far from the one who had delivered them. And then came the consequences. This time, oppression came from a king named Jabin. He ruled over Canaan, and for 20 years he oppressed Israel harshly. But Jabin's real strength wasn't just in his throne, it was in his army. And leading that army was a man named Sisera. Sisera was feared, not just because of his experience, but because of what he commanded: 900 iron chariots. In those days, that was overwhelming power. Fast, ruthless, nearly unstoppable. To stand against that kind of force was almost unthinkable. And so Israel suffered, quietly, helplessly, waiting for something to change. But God had not forgotten them. In the middle of that broken season, he raised someone unexpected, not a warrior, not a king, a woman. Her name was Deborah. Deborah was a prophetess, a judge in Israel. People came to her not because she held power in the way the world understands it, but because she heard from God. She would sit under a palm tree, and the people would come to her for judgment, for wisdom, for direction. And in a time when the nation was unstable, her voice became a place of clarity. One day, Deborah sent for a man named Barak, and when he came, she gave him a message, not her opinion, not advice, a command from God. He was to gather 10,000 men from the tribes of Naphtali and Zebulun and go to Mount Tabor, because God himself would draw Sisera out and give him into Barak's hands. It was a clear instruction, but Barak hesitated. He looked at Deborah and said, "If you go with me, I will go. But if you don't go, I won't." Now that moment says a lot. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was doubt. Maybe he just needed reassurance. But Deborah agreed to go with him. Still, she made something very clear. The honor of the victory would not be his. Because of the way he responded, the final glory would go to a woman. And so, the journey began. Barak gathered the men, 10,000 of them. They went up to Mount Tabor, with Deborah beside them, and somewhere else, Sisera heard. He gathered his army, all 900 iron chariots. He was confident. Why wouldn't he be? This was a battle he had won many times before. But this time, something was different. As the battle began, God moved. The Lord threw Sisera and his army into confusion. What once looked organized became chaos. What once looked strong began to fall apart. The advantage they relied on failed them, and suddenly the unstoppable army was no longer unstoppable. Barak and his men pursued them, and one by one, Sisera's forces were defeated until there was nothing left. Sisera himself ran, not in a chariot, not with an army, on foot. And he came to the tent of a woman named Jael. She welcomed him in, gave him rest, covered him, and as he slept, thinking he was safe, his story ended there, quietly, unexpectedly. And just like that, Israel was delivered again. It's a powerful story, not just because of the victory, but because of how it happened. God didn't use what people expected. He used Deborah, a woman leading in a time when that was uncommon. He used Barak, even with his hesitation. And he used Jael in a moment no one saw coming. It reminds us of something simple, but important. God doesn't always work through the obvious. He works through those who are willing, those who listen, Those who step forward, even when they're unsure, because in the end, victory doesn't come from strength alone. It comes from obedience.